Imagine you're sitting inside a bullet train in Japan. You're just watching the mountains blur past your window, bathed in beautiful daylight, and then, suddenly, the world just disappears. No sky, no sunlight, no ocean view at all. Just absolute darkness, immense speed, crushing pressure, and a silent tunnel buried deep beneath the sea. For almost 25 minutes, you are plunging beneath one of Japan's most dangerous, volatile stretches of ocean. To really wrap your head around the sheer scale of this engineering marvel, you have to realize that this train is traveling 240 meters below sea level. I mean, think about that number for a second. You are deeper under the ocean floor than many skyscrapers are tall. Millions of tons of cold, stormy seawater are literally pressing down on the rock right above your head. But here is the shocking part. This incredible, futuristic marvel of modern engineering, it wasn't built for glory. It wasn't built for profit or to break some world record. Japan built this because of a dark, inescapable truth. They built it because the sea had already taken too much. Section 1. The tragedy that started it. To truly grasp the stakes here, we have to look back at the devastating history that forced a nation to attempt the impossible. Right above this tunnel lies the Tsugaru Strait. Now, historically, ferries cross this water every single day, but in 1954, nature turned incredibly violent. A massive typhoon struck the strait, completely sinking the Toyomaru ferry. Over 1,400 people lost their lives in the freezing waves. That profound tragedy proved, once and for all, that this stretch of water was simply too dangerous. Japan desperately needed a connection that storms couldn't stop. So, the crucial point is, a bridge was entirely out of the question. The strait was just too deep, way too windy, and far too treacherous for shipping. The engineers really had nowhere to look but downward. Not at the ocean surface, but deep into the solid rock beneath the seabed. Section 2. Not just one tunnel. So this brings us to an unprecedented engineering challenge. How do you actually carve a massive hole under the ocean without, letting the ocean in? Well, the tunnel wasn't just one tunnel at first. You don't just point a massive drill at the seabed and hope for the best. A single mistake would flood the entire project in a matter of minutes. Instead, engineers designed a highly complex system, and it started with this: the pilot tunnel. Think of this as Japan's underground detective. It was a smaller tunnel, driven forward ahead of everything else, basically acting as a scout. Its entire job was to test the unpredictable volcanic rock, map out the fault lines, and detect highly pressurized, dangerous water zones before the larger excavation ever reached them. Right alongside it was the service tunnel. This was an absolute lifeline. It allowed workers to actually access the site, provided essential ventilation, managed material transport, and most importantly, it offered a critical safety and maintenance route. This is what kept the massive construction effort moving forward, deep in the dark. And finally, we have the main tunnel, the massive final excavation where the actual railway tracks would eventually be laid. And this brilliantly illustrates how the Seikan Tunnel was never just a hole in the ground. No, it was an intricate three-part system working in perfect harmony to slowly conquer the Tsugaru Strait. Section 3. Battling the ocean pressure. Now, even with this brilliant system, the environment down there for the workers was an absolute nightmare. Imagine standing deep beneath the seabed in total darkness, with the constant, crushing threat of the entire ocean sitting right above you. Because the real danger was not speed, it was water. Modern, massive tunnel boring machines actually failed here because the volcanic geology was just way too unpredictable. They had to do it the hard way. Okay, let's dive into this grueling process. Whenever the pilot tunnel detected a weak zone, the engineers ran this incredibly repetitive, exhausting loop. First, they drilled long probe holes into the rock ahead. Second, they tested those holes for water pressure. Third, if they found water, they injected a cement-like grout at extreme pressure to artificially strengthen the rock and seal out the seawater. Only then, in step 4, could they safely blast and clear the rock. Drill, test, seal, blast. Over and over and over again. And, it didn't always work perfectly. The rock was completely fractured. There were hidden water-bearing faults everywhere. They faced terrifying sudden flooding incidents where seawater would literally burst through the rock face with the roar of a jet engine. And remember, there was no sky to escape to. Over decades, thousands of workers faced cave-ins and floods, relying purely on sheer discipline and immense sacrifice to control the inflow, pump the water out, and just keep digging. It was a staggering human effort. Section 4. High speed under the sea. That dark, grueling atmosphere of the 70s and 80s eventually gave way to a triumphant, sleek new era. Just think about this timeline of sheer perseverance. Two teams dug blindly toward each other through miles of rock and ocean pressure. In 1983, the pilot tunnel finally broke through. In 1985, the main tunnel connected. By 1988, the Seikan Tunnel officially opened, and decades later, in 2016, the visionary future arrived when the Hokkaido Shinkansen began service, bringing bullet trains under the sea for the very first time. But introducing modern high-speed rail created a massive clash of two entirely different worlds. Now, what's really interesting about this is the stark contrast. On one hand, you have the Shinkansen passenger trains running on standard gauge tracks at unbelievable speeds. And on the other, you have these heavy cargo freight trains running on narrow gauge tracks. The Seikan Tunnel somehow had to perfectly accommodate both of them. The solution? An engineering masterstroke, the dual gauge track. They laid a three-rail system so both types of trains could seamlessly share the exact same route. But mixing heavy freight with bullet trains inside a confined undersea tube creates massive aerodynamic pressure waves. Because of this, Shinkansen trains can't simply blast through at maximum speed. Their speed is highly regulated and carefully controlled by advanced software just to ensure the absolute safety of everything inside that tunnel. Section 5. Invisible Engineering Miracle. Which brings us to the reality of the Seikan Tunnel today. You see, building it was only the first miracle. Operating it every single day is an ongoing, invisible one. It's not just a static hole in the earth. It is a living, breathing machine that is constantly fighting the ocean behind the scenes. Former undersea stations are now emergency hubs. Giant drainage pumps have to run continuously because water still seeps in. Yet for the passengers sitting inside the cabin, maybe scrolling on their phone, the ride is perfectly calm, silent, and entirely ordinary. And that is the true legacy of this structure. As this quote captures so beautifully, Japan did not defeat the ocean by fighting its waves. It defeated the ocean by going underneath them. The Seikan Tunnel doesn't shout for attention like a massive skyscraper. It just disappears into the earth. It is a testament to understated resilience, built out of absolute necessity, quietly making modern life possible. Decades of courage and sacrifice all culminate in that moment when the bullet train finally bursts out of the darkness and into the bright Hokkaido daylight. If this journey into one of the world's most hidden and incredible engineering wonders changed the way you see tunnels, trains, and infrastructure, please subscribe and like this explainer. The world is absolutely full of invisible structures that quietly change history. Let me know in the comments, what unbelievable engineering wonder should we explore next?